Welcome to the Florida Real Estate and Entrepreneur Podcast, where we interview the best and the brightest business and real estate leaders. Our mission is to inspire and help 1,000 entrepreneurs to start and succeed in real estate and entrepreneurship. We will give you the exact playbook to succeed in your business through the experience of those who blaze the path. We're bringing the what's working today directly to you. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Florida Real Estate and Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, I have not just a guest, but an actual friend of mine that I've known for over a decade. We worked together as Marines for some time, and our paths just keep crossing. And it's been really awesome to watch Justin Noe, our guest today, and his growth. And not only his successful career in retiring from the Marine Corps, but his growth in the real estate industry. He hails from Brooksville, Florida, which, if you don't know, is like a central Florida, really niche market. He basically owns that place, and he's doing all kinds of I call him the mayor of Brooksville in my mind. He doesn't know that, but if I go to Brooksville, I'm like, hey, do you know Justin Noe? Because he's the man over here. But he's doing all kinds of cool and amazing things in real estate, everything from working the retail market to flipping houses to new builds. And he's just a real force multiplier in the Brooksville community in the greater Central Florida area. So welcome, Justin. I'm super pumped to have you, man.
Hey, what's up, Adam? Appreciate you having me on the podcast. This is awesome. I've been watching you grow as well. So, I know you're just now getting to the retirement phase of the Marine Corps. You got a little work to do on the beard, but man, you're looking good, and I'm excited for you.
Yeah. For those of you watching who don't know the kind of military retiree community, you're judged on how long you've been retired by how full your beard is. So I'm 5 days into retirement and Justin's over a year into retirement, which you could tell just by looking at our beard. So if you're not watching this on YouTube and you're listening to it, I have what looks to be like a 5 o'clock shadow, and Justin looks like Gandalf on here. So he is far more experienced in his retirement stage from the military. All right, man. Hey, what I'm most fascinated about, and a decade ago when you and I were working together on missions in the Marine Corps, I honestly had no idea you were kind of into real estate and that was going to be your path when you retired. So I'm really curious, like, when did you learn about it? What got you really interested into it? And what was your journey like, and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so I can go all the way back to my childhood to kind of talk about that, because my parents owned 3 rental properties. The first house I ever remember living in ended up being a rental property. We actually have that property still to this day. I'll talk about that later. But my parents always had them. My grandparents had them before that. My parents bought them from them. And, so I remember that. Now, my parents did not like being landlords, and they, never really increased the rent. My dad is able to fix anything, but he hated having to go over there and fix stuff. So, they would get dilapidated and things like that. So I kind of had like a negative experience when I was younger. And then in the Marine Corps, I was there for about 8 years. So I came in 2002, and then about, the end of 2010, my wife, it was Christmas time. We were home in Brooksville, and she gave me 2 books for Christmas. And I was like, why do I have these books? I don't read very much. And one of them was called The Slight Edge. And that was a good book. But the best book that I could have ever have gotten, which at the time I thought was dumb, was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And man, I'm not kidding. That was the first book I read, and I couldn't put it down. I read it in 2 days. And then I moved on to The Slight Edge. And then at that point, I couldn't get enough of reading about real estate and the power of it and everything else. And so that was the end of 2010 going into 2011.
Can we camp on that for a second? Because,
yeah, for sure.
Okay, first off, Lena, she got you a book on real estate. Why did she do that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So she was big into the Charlene Johnson lady, and listening to, I don't know if they were podcasting back then, but, kind of following her, and I don't know, Facebook or whatever was going on back then. I wasn't big into social media at the time. And she had said on her podcast, the 2 best books, ladies, that you can get your husband is this book and that book. And so Lena just happened to get both of those books for me. So maybe she was trying to, subconsciously tell me something that I needed to do.
Oh, gosh, that is so cool, man. Like actually the first time I read it, Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is like, it's like Pandora's box for real estate investors because the concepts in there are explained so simple that Marines like you and I can understand them. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is like life-changing information. Was actually, for me, it was 2008. I was PCSing from California to the East Coast. PCSing is where they make us move every 3 years in the military. And I listened to it on the way over and I had the same reaction. I was like, this is bizarre. Like these concepts are bizarre. So that's really cool. So 2 years later, 2010, you read it. She gives you those two books. Slight Edge, was that any good? I have that book. I don't think I ever read it.
Yeah, it's a really good book. It has a couple parables in there that kind of catch your attention, about the frog who jumps and, turns milk into butter and was able to get out. The other guy quit and died. And then, the concept about, would you rather have a penny doubled every day or $1 million up front? Those kind of parables that were in there that were really good. And then there's just kind of goes into a lot more information of how to challenge yourself, push yourself to be better and not give up and quit and things of that nature. My daughter's has read that book, and so she got a lot out of that too. My oldest daughter, Callie, and so it's been one that I still have to this day. It's probably on my shelf somewhere over there.
I'll say you didn't convince me to read it, but I do have it.
Hey, I will say it was a good book for somebody that's fresh in on their journey. That's where I was at the time. Have read it since, but it's great for somebody that is just kind of, where do I go in life? What do I need to do? Not saying it's about real estate by any means, but, after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then immediately reading this, I was like hooked on learning as much as I could.
I love it. Okay. So 2010, where were you stationed at? Like, where were you living at this time? So you were back in Brooksville, you got the gifts, you read the books, you were like, oh my gosh, where were you stationed at? What did that lead to for you? And then at what point did you start to do real estate?
Yep, great question. So we were actually in between duty stations. We were leaving Pensacola and then we were going to Maryland because I was an instructor and I was going to Maryland to work at the National Security Agency and was at home, in between those two locations. And then, so I read that in between going up to Maryland. When I got to Maryland, I was on the hunt to buy something. We went ahead and already had base housing locked in. So we moved into base housing. We found a realtor through a Marine network. Actually, I've sent other people to her since then. Now that I'm a licensed agent, I was able to get some referral fees from that. And she's a great, person. And then her partner in the business also helped me sell my home up in Maryland, about 10 years later. So that was a great first experience. I went and looked at a ton of houses. Now, remind you, this is back in 2011. And the market conditions in 2011 was that my first time buying was a great time to buy. I wish I could go back to 2011 and tell myself, hey, buy more houses.
So when you got to Maryland, you went on to base housing, which is just basically rental houses on a military installation that you can live in. And at that time, you had to move in there while you tried to find a house you were going to buy and live in. And that's what you did?
That is. And so we originally, it was our first home and we're like, oh, we want to buy, all the fancy things. But then I was reading more books and stuff like that. And I was like, we need something that we can rent out when we leave because we know we're going to PCS, right? Because I was in it for the long haul at that time. I was going to be at 10 plus years when I left. And so this gentleman too, Trevor Claypool, and his family lived in this community and, they knew somebody that was in there that was renting a spot, but the guy was selling the home as a short sale. And at the time I'm like, I don't know what a short sale is. And everybody's like, well, short sales, the term is weird because it takes a really long time to close on them. And I was like, okay, so I'm kind of learning. So my first deal was a short sale and we put in an offer. I think they had it at 150. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom townhome. And we offered him 145. The gentleman that we purchased it from bought that house for 280 and then took out a secondary mortgage on it. So he owed a ton of money and we essentially got the 50% off sale. So we got it for 145 and it needed a little bit of work, which my wife and I did most of that. Trevor Claypool came over and taught me how to put in floors, taught me how to lay tile. And I learned a great lesson about real estate in general, but also about what I'm good at and what I don't like to do.
Yeah, so you're not going to be swinging too many hammers anymore. I'm sure of that.
Well, and you don't want me to. It takes me about 3 nails to get 1 nail in. So
yeah. No, I'm right there with you. Okay, so I don't want to be left in suspense. So 2011, now you find this house, like you're buying a short sale. Okay, so I didn't know you in 2011, but I do want to tell a little bit of a parallel story here because you and I are like on this track together and we don't even know each other yet. I got selected for MESAP and they sent me up to Michigan. Okay. I'm an E5. I don't have a bunch of money, but for the first time in my life, I have a little bit of money. And I am thinking the same thing you're thinking. I have to buy a house. Like that's the way to do it. Robert Kiyosaki told me so. And I get up to Michigan and there's this house in Canton, Michigan, and I'm doing everything in my power to buy this thing. And it's a similar situation, but it needed work. Like it needed legitimate work. And I would think I was trying to use the VA loan and I was like doing work to this house. We were going to buy it for $99,000. Long story short is we didn't get to buy it. We ended up renting. I made some mistakes. I didn't really know what I was doing. I had like my in-laws were like, I don't know. This seems like kind of a mess. That house ended up selling for almost $300,000 years later. So I was super sad once I figured out what I was doing that I didn't buy that house and keep it. So what happened to your Maryland house? You bought it on a short sale at 50 cents on the dollar for $145,000. Sounds like you sold it 10 years later.
It was just about 10 years later. I think we sold it in 2021. So it was just under like 10 years.
The height of the market for how much money?
What did we sell that for? I think we sold it for $240 is what and then I gave some money towards closing costs and stuff like that. So $240. Yeah. I had told myself I would wait until it was up to $300 to sell it, but we can go into that, but I was looking to do more investing down in Florida. So, I wanted to raise some capital for that.
So you probably got a check for around $100,000 or a little more maybe at that time?
Yeah, I would say because we had refinanced it when the rates went even lower. So, I owed probably $150 when we refinanced. And then, we probably owed like $130 on it. So I would say when it was all said and done, it was about $91,000 or $92,000.
Okay. So when you bought that house, were you able to buy it with the VA loan?
Yep. Yeah, we had a VA loan with that. So no money down. I think I got a check for like $4,000 when I, closed on that.
When you bought it.
Yeah.
So you got a check for $4,000 when you bought it.
Yep.
You used the military housing allowance that you're going to get anyways to pay your mortgage while you were there. Then you rented it out. Mm-hmm. And somebody else paid your mortgage. And then at the end, you sold it and you got a check for almost $100,000. So you got basically an infinite return. I mean, double an infinite return because you got paid on both ends.
Yeah. And that's actually a really cool deal too, because when we bought it, like I didn't know what I was doing. I had read Kiyosaki's book and I had read some other books and stuff like that, but I didn't know anything really about cash flow. I didn't know anything about expenses. Like I just knew that this person was renting it for $1,500. The current tenant in there. And I was like, well, at least I'm going to get $1,500 on it, when I leave. And then my payment was like $225 plus I think I had to pay, $160 a month for the HOA, which covers trash and sewer and stuff like that. So I was like doing the math. I was like, man, like I'm making $2,000 in BAH. That's like $1,000 of cash flow right there. I'm like, man, I can go buy a new car. The stupid me, bought a car and was paying a payment on it. But, fast forward to when we left, we got a tenant in there. It was a Marine buddy who was, looking to move off base. He rents it out for $1,500 a month, go figure. And then that was in 2014 after we had PCS'd. And then, from years after that, I got lucky. I got another Marine in there for a few years. He paid, I don't know, $1,550 or $1,600. And then when he left, I rented it out and a civilian rented it at that point. And she was paying like $1,850. And so, I mean, when I did the math on the whole deal, because I sat down there and figured it out one time, I think we, with cash flow and then the sale at the end, made over $200,000 in a 10-year period for no money in it. Really, I had to fix it up, but
can't beat it. Can't beat it. Okay, that's super cool. I'm glad you gave me closure on that because I mean, pretty much if you bought anything in 2011 and kept it for 10 years, you would have a hard time not making a bunch of money. So I was just curious how much it ended up being. So a couple $100,000, which for a lot of people, I mean, even you, that's like life-changing money, that especially if you know what you're doing with the money and you can keep turning it and making more with it. So that's really awesome. So you leave that place, you got this one rental. Did you get any more rentals while you were there? What did you do next?
Man, I actually should have pushed a lot harder because I started after that. I got like a bug and I was looking for other rentals and stuff. I just didn't know how to analyze them. And I did get with my realtor and I went and looked at like this, I don't know, it's probably like a quadplex or something like that near Baltimore, but I wasn't super familiar with the area and I just didn't know how to really do that much. And I didn't have like somebody to ask about it. Most of the people that I knew were investing in the stock market, stuff like that. So I didn't know who to ask, where to go, bigger pockets now, like, that's, would have been great if I would have.
They were barely known back then though, like pre-2014, they were just basically an online forum.
Yeah. And so that's what I mean. Like I didn't know anybody. So I just, thought that you may have a couple rentals and then own your own house and that was it. So I didn't know what to do and how to evaluate the thing. So then I just got really focused on, my career there. Like it was pretty intensive, like, training that I had to do and all that kind of stuff. So I, spent a lot of time focusing on that. And then
2014 was when we met.
Yep. So before then, like I got selected to that officer program to become a warrant officer. So I had to go through that training in 2013. So a year and a half later, basically, I was in, from the time we bought that house, I was in officer, training. And then 6 months after that, we were PCSing to California. And I had planned to buy a house there. And I spoke to a realtor and he told me about bidding wars and this and that. And I was just coming off of where I was like, offering lower. And I kicked myself in the butt every day for not buying a house in California. Because had I done that in the 3-year period we were there, I probably would have gotten another 150, maybe 200,000 in equity on the house just in that time period. And then if I would have kept it for 5 or 6 years, I mean, it would have probably been $500,000, return. So I kicked myself in the butt.
I think while we were there, Chris Rodney bought a property, and I don't know how many hundreds of thousands he made when he sold that, but I think it was over 300K because he did what we should have done, which was buy a house for 600K, and then when years later list it for over $1 million.
Well, this is the crazy part: is the houses I thought they were too high because they were like 350. And I was there, probably 6 years before that too. So like my second time, so I was on my second tour back to California. And back then, those same houses were selling for like 455, 600,000. So, I mean, even then it, had gone up like 50 grand in value. It would seem like a lot at the time. I mean, I didn't realize that it was going to have a run like that. But I mean, those houses now are sitting close to $800,000 and, it kind of sucks.
Yeah. Every investor that I can remember talking to who's been doing this for a couple decades, like they always say, I wish I would have bought more. I wish I would have kept more, like almost to a T. So, it's like, wow. And we deal with all this fear mongering in the real estate. And every single year that I can remember since I've been in the industry, there's something wrong. Like, it's going to bust. Like I can remember every year since 2016, the national media saying, oh, the real estate market is going to, have a downturn. It's going to have a downturn every year like clockwork. And all we did was keep running up and running up and running up. And now we're having a little bit of a downturn, which is the best time to buy properties typically. And people are like, oh my gosh, I don't want to buy anything in real estate because things are bad. It's like, no, this is the time to buy the real estate. And history has proven that over and over and over again. So that's always comical to me. So California, you don't buy anything. Are you masterminding and scheming to do your next real estate thing while you're out there?
So no, I just spent a lot of time kind of learning. It was like I deployed when I got there. So I was gone for 6 months and leading up to that, I was training and all that kind of stuff. And then you get home, I just got home high and kind of like, forgot about real estate investing, again, because I felt like I had to be there to find an investment and all that kind of thing. So fast forward to like 2016, I'm moving duty stations again. I'm going over to North Carolina and, I'm looking for a house there because I'm, seeing things on the market that I can afford. And I'm like, I'm not renting anymore. I'm not going to live on base anymore. Like I want to buy something. And so we find another short sale. Just go figure that. And I still had VA eligibility left. So I was able to use my VA loan again. So I got another check at closing when I bought that. I was able to negotiate the price lower. I was able to negotiate some closing cost assistance. So again, I got paid to buy a house. It did need extensive work. So this time I had to put a lot more money into the home. But I'll remember this again, I tried to go at it again to, do a lot of the repairs myself. And about 2 days of scraping off popcorn ceilings, I was like, screw this, man. I called a guy up and he came out there and he finished out scraping those, and putting a flat ceiling on there. He painted the whole house. But other than that.
And how long did it take him to do that?
Oh man, it took him like a week.
And how long would that have taken you to finish that?
I mean, I was 2 days in. I still had more than half the house to go. So, yeah.
You would have been weeks to finish, probably.
Well, and that's the thing, because I did the floors mostly myself. And then my buddies would come over after they got off work because I was doing my 10 days of house hunting, stuff. And so they would come over when we get off work and they would help me put in floors for a couple hours. But I would be there all day long. And it took me the whole 10 days to get those floors in. And my back could feel those 10 days.
Oh, man, I love it. I love it. Okay, so you bought this house. You bought this house in North Carolina and lived in it. Did you buy any other rentals while you were there?
So we actually moved into another neighborhood. Our house got broken into, and my wife no longer wanted to live there, didn't feel safe. So we moved into another neighborhood that we ended up loving there in Saltwater. It's called Saltwater Landing inside of Surf City. So if you're ever in North Carolina looking for a cool town, Surf City is definitely it. But we turned it into a rental, and we rented that out to a couple. And they basically lived in it until we sold it. We tried to get them to buy it. They were interested in buying it, but not at the price, that we were trying to sell it for at the time. And so they ended up buying another house. I kind of kicked myself in the butt and sort of just, figured out what price point would have worked with them because it ended up sitting on the market longer, found out it had issues with the septic that cost me like $20,000 at closing. And, I still made over $100,000 on it, plus the, amount of money, we got for cash flow. But again, that was in 2021. And we were doing this as a part of our investment strategy in Florida at the time.
Yeah. Well, so the theme I'm seeing is, so I know you went to North Carolina and then you eventually went out to Aurora, Colorado.
Correct.
Right before you retired. I think that was your last spot, right?
That's correct.
And in 2021, you were like liquidating the properties that you had, because I'm guessing you had made a decision to retire and you were coming back to Florida, so you were posturing for that.
Yeah. So this is funny, right? I was in North Carolina and I was planning to stay there, right? I was going to retire out of there. And I had already talked to the monitor, Jim Mush, you know him. Like he's like, hey, you're good. You're going to stay here another year. And I was like, man, by that time I only got 2 years. I can drop papers and I can retire in place. And, that I'll call it home. Well, you know how the Marine Corps goes. I get that, verbal, like, hey, you're good in June. Well, I come back from Thanksgiving break and I have a bunch of emails like, I need you to call me. Hey, where are you at? I need you to call me. And then I finally just had to see an email like, hey, you're going to Colorado. Call me if you have any issues. And I'm like, what the heck? So I call him up and I'm like, what's going on? He's like, man, you're going to love Colorado. And I was like, I mean, I probably will. It's a cool place, but my wife is loving it here. And he's like, man, you're just going to love it out there. It's such a great spot. I'm like, well, can I talk to my wife? He's like, yeah, you can talk to your wife all you want. Let me know if there's like some kind of like drastic issue that you can't go for, but you're going to really like Colorado. It's got great schools. It's got the mountains, just selling it for me. Right. So we ended up going to Colorado.
Yep.
I had already discovered bigger pockets by that time, and had been looking and searching for, my next investment opportunity before we went to Colorado. And we were looking in North Carolina. There was a ton of houses. I should have bought way more houses in North Carolina before I left. But we went down to Florida, back to my hometown, dropped my kids off. And then Lena and I were going to fly out to Colorado and we were going to look for our primary residence. And we were also trying to look for rental properties. So we go out there, we find we actually did find a property we closed on and bought when we moved out there, but we didn't find any rental properties. Come back to Brooksville. Never thought about investing here, didn't plan on coming back here, doing any of that kind of stuff at the time. But the Lord works in mysterious ways. And I was driving my daughters around, showing them where I grew up and, pointing things out. And I see this sign in the yard on this little house. And I'm like, man, I wonder what, real estate's going for here? And I had made it a goal, by the way, I forgot to say this, in 2019 to buy my first property as an investment property with the down payment that I'd saved up and all that kind of stuff. So I had made that a goal to do that within the first 6 months of the year. And this was like April. So we're like 4 months in. Find this house, call on it. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, the property's under contract. She's like, but I've got some other ones for you. The property was listed at like 67 grand. I was like, dude, I've got $20,000. Like I can, 20% on that is like nothing, So she sends me to another property. We go out there and look at it. It was listed at like 78,000. They had already done a price drop or two on it and didn't need much work. It was already kind of fixed up. I was like, wonder why this isn't selling. And I kind of ran some numbers on rent, saw that I could rent it for about $900. I was like, offer them 72 and ask for closing cost assistance. And so she did that. We ended up getting a few thousand in closing assistance and we closed on it for 72,000. So 6 off the asking price. And then I think we had to come to the table all out of pocket for closing was about 15 grand. And then it needed about a $3,500 renovation to fix the floor in the bathroom because it had, gotten rotted wood. So we had to pull out the subfloor and then put in new subfloor and put in new LVP or something like that. And for 80 grand all in, I ended up, or less than 80 grand, picking up this property, fixing it up, put it on the MLS after the repairs were done within like 2 weeks and found somebody within like 2 weeks to rent it out for $875. So it was cash flowing from day one.
What was so you put money down. So how much was the loan you took out on it and what was the mortgage payment?
Yeah, I want to say, I had to put 20% down. I think that was just do the math. That's like 14 grand plus some closing costs. So it was 15
like
out of
50 or 60 grand basically.
Yeah, it was like I think it was right around like $60,000. Yeah, 100%. Okay. And my payment on that was like $400. It was like stupid low.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I refinanced it.
This is in Florida, like Central Florida, like maybe 45 minutes north of Tampa?
Yep, absolutely.
That's so wild. When you think of Central Florida and the market there, like finding anything even under 400 grand can be a challenge.
Yeah, this was at the time, it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom with like a office space. We ended up converting that into a bedroom and putting a little closet in there and a door on it. So now it's a 3-1 that we still own to this day as a rental. In 2021, we took advantage of the rates and refinanced it. Or maybe we did that in 22. I can't remember, but we refinanced it late 21, I think, for a lower rate. And we got all of our money plus about $20,000 out of it. So now, if you think we bought it for 72, we ended up taking out a mortgage for like 87, very limited closing costs for us. So we essentially walked away with all of our money back plus like 20 grand.
So it was basically a free house that they paid you to take, and it
Correct.
Makes money, it cash flows today.
Yeah. So back then when we first started renting it out for $875 to our first tenant, that guy lived in that home all the way up until last year, which I helped him find another home and he purchased that through me. So now we got another tenant in there and she's paying $1,475.
Wow.
Yeah. Insane.
Yeah. Okay, so let's fast forward because I want to get to the point where you go to Colorado, you decide to finally buy in your own home state, right? So your whole plan was to live in North Carolina, then you get uprooted to Colorado, you end up buying a property in your home state, in your hometown, and now you're like, oh, maybe I can go back there and do this. And you do eventually get back to North Carolina as you retire out of the Marine Corps. Not North Carolina, Brooksville, Florida, and. The way the story ends in my mind is you become the mayor of Brooksville and you own all the rentals there. And, you're like the main agent in that area, at least in my mind. So what really happened? Yeah.
So, I had partnered up with a mutual friend of ours, Nate Cherubini, and we started buying up more properties. And, we got into a really good property together and then we got into a really bad property together. Feel free to go listen to the Real Estate Rookie podcast to, hear all about our big disaster there, which most people probably would have quit after that because we lost over $120,000 combined. But we kept going. We brought our brothers on the team. And then we seized the day in 2021 and, scaled 4 more homes. that year alone. And then we started taking multiple trips back and, coming back here and seeing the growth in the town and seeing, so many great things that I didn't recognize, when I was younger, which I loved growing up here, by the way. And it's a great place to live and grow up. But like when you came back, there wasn't much going on in the downtown, but there had been some entrepreneurs, right? Yay entrepreneurs that wanted to come in and kind of revitalize some things. There was the town was trying to do that. The actual mayor of the town now is, and coming into that time was a guy I went to high school with. He was our class president. Him and I are good buddies, and the stuff that he was trying to energize into the town and, entrepreneurs. So now government is working with business to improve the town, to make it a place where more entrepreneurs and more businesses want to come and people want to visit. And so it was pretty awesome because I was at like the precipice, at the cusp of that starting to happen, and me coming back and recognizing this, and then, helping the town get better and, finding these dilapidated homes and, fixing them up, making them look great, providing quality housing, to at a affordable price. And when I say quality, I mean like they're older homes, but we put in LVP flooring, we put in a nice paint color, we put in stainless steel appliances, we put in upgraded cabinetry, we put in granite countertops. We try to make it like a nice home that we wouldn't mind living in, if we had to. So that's kind of like our goal whenever we, bring on projects and stuff like that. So it was really cool to be a part of that growth from, 5 years ago when we first started investing here till today.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. Great timing too, right? Because you've got this time in the real estate market just post-COVID where Central Florida becomes this hub of an influx of people. I mean, at one point, 1,000 people a day were moving to Florida coming out of COVID. Yep. And the greater Tampa Bay area, it just, absolutely explodes. What's unique about that though, if you think about it, there's only so much space. You can only build so many houses. So all of the counties surrounding Tampa start to get growth as well, like a little bit delayed, but you start going up to Pasco and Hernando County, and these places go from rural and eclectic to now they're starting to be booming towns, and there's all this development happening because that's where there's still land to build things. And obviously Brooksville is a part of that. And I ended up buying a house up in Pasco, Land O'Lakes, that is seeing a ton of development as well. So we're like the beneficiaries also of great timing, which I'm grateful for. I certainly know you are. And just as a quick aside, I invest in Central Florida as well, all those surrounding counties around Tampa. And and now I know that Justin is the mayor of Brooksville, and this is like north of me. And I get this deal that's like even further north of him and over on the coast. And I'm like, Cedar Key, right? And I don't know anything about Cedar Key, but I've got this person who wants to sell it to me at a discount. And I'm like, I have no idea. We should call Justin because he's like the king of mobile homes. And he knows the rural area, and he probably he'll get a better value. So we ended up basically flipping this house with Justin, and Justin sold it for us. And it was just cool to do a deal with you, man. Like, yeah, that was. We're on these parallel tracks for a decade, kind of similar, and working in a completely different industry, and all of a sudden we're doing real estate deals together.
I know, it's awesome.
It was so cool, man. And I'm about 2 weeks from moving down to my house in Land O'Lakes, so I'm sure you and I and our families will spend a lot of time together in the future. So I'm really pumped, man. I'm super proud of you. I'm proud that I think what people don't recognize for a lot of guys coming out of the Department of Defense or the military, the comfort zone is to go get a government job. They're easy to get, and frankly, they pay us a lot of money to do them. Like $150,000 to $200,000 a year is not off the table. It's pretty common, actually, but very few people are willing to go chase the thing they're passionate about. And I've been on the sidelines watching you do it, man. I'm super proud to see all your growth, and I genuinely do believe, like you own Brooksville. To me, when I think about Brooksville and real estate, like that's Justin Noe's area, man.
And I appreciate that because, that is my goal, is to, not be the guy who runs and owns everything, right? But I definitely want to be a part of a lot of things in our town. So I try to, help other businesses with their things. Like I've got some friends, they started a brewery here, and, when I was before they had their brewery open, they could brew beers, but they couldn't sell it or anything. And I asked them to brew, hey, I'm retiring in my hometown. Very few people get to do that. Would you guys be willing to brew me a beer? And they're like, absolutely. Like, just tell us what kind of beers you like and we'll come up with our own creation. And so, they did that for me, and they called it Justin Noe. And, it's a great beer. Lena and I were turning 40 last month. So they, recreated the beer for us and put it on tap to serve their customers because now they're open. And so, trying to bring customers to them and try to give back to them because they, this town has given me so much, growing up and then coming back here. And, that's really special to me because that was something that I looked for a lot when I was in the military. And it's hard to find that in a town that you're going to leave in 3 years. Yeah. So I had found that in North Carolina because we thought we were going to stay, but then we got uprooted and brought out of here. So it's pretty awesome to be in a town where you're going to be. We already had some roots, and so we're getting to plant our own roots with our family now. So it's pretty special.
So cool, man. It is special. It's so cool. All right. So if people listen to this and they want to work with you, what are the best ways? How can people work with you? And what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah. So the best way to work with me is like partnerships, man. I love doing partnerships. I've got quite a few partners on different deals and different companies and stuff like that. I'm starting to get into the JV world. So JVing with people. So that way a lot of people may have money or may want to get into investing. So, hey, let's partner on something. We can show you what we've done in the area. You can decide if that's something that you want to do. Obviously, I'm also a licensed agent here in Central Florida. So if you're looking for somebody to help you find an investment opportunity, help you to list one of your flips, I try to go above and beyond. Like, I don't just do your typical photos. I go out there, I bring a camera crew out. I usually write a script right beforehand and then, get out there and actually do a professional, I've been said like HGTV style videos. And I try to do my best. Like, it's not just a one take and, oh, it's good enough. No, it's like, hey, let's take it again until we get it right. So that way it's professional. And it's something that we then put out on all of our platforms. So we have our own website, which is justinnoerealestate.com. We have our YouTube channel, which is Justin Noe Real Estate. We've got our Instagram, Justin Noe Real Estate. And if you're catching on a theme here, it's just something that I started when I first got into sales, and it just stuck and I just went with it. So on any social media platform, I'm not on Twitter, and I'm on LinkedIn, but I'm not too active there. I need to get more active there. But Instagram, YouTube, and our website, Facebook, just because if you have Instagram, you have Facebook. So those are the main areas. I prefer Instagram, like Adam. So, I remember one day you putting out a post, follow me to Instagram. And I haven't really looked back.
I'll tell you what, man, for whatever reason, Facebook is my best. I have the most people on Facebook, but yes, I'm trying to get them to Instagram. I've been doing that for 2 years and I still can't seem to grow Instagram like I did Facebook. I'd prefer you follow me on Instagram and we communicate there. It's a better platform, but yeah.
I agree. We put all of our ads on Instagram Facebook, because it's better for real estate ads. So when we do take that video,
sell deals.
Yeah, because it's easier to put it out to the masses because they got marketplace and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and it's just an easier way to run ads. So.
Yeah. So you guys, if you need a good investor friendly agent or like a military friendly agent in Central Florida, Justin is phenomenal. Like, I personally have worked with Justin and they're just next level. They're willing to go above and beyond, which I truly appreciate because that's how I work too. So check them out at justinnoerealestate.com. Go check them out on Instagram. If you want to do deals, here's another cool thing he didn't mention, but they're in the process of building brand new houses, which are going to be amazing build to sell houses. If you've got money sitting on the sideline and you want to get into new builds, Justin is a great resource for this. They're doing really awesome stuff up in that area. So, highly recommend you reach out to him as soon as possible. Dude, I'm so grateful that we could make this work today.
Yeah, me too.
And I could get fit into your busy schedule. So thanks for coming on, man. It was awesome. Your story is just amazing, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Adam. This is great. I'm glad that you're doing this for other real estate investors, entrepreneurs. I've been thinking about a podcast for a long time, but you're out here crushing it every day. You inspire me to always want to do better. So I'm always appreciative of you bringing me on here. And I look forward to having you in Florida because then you get to enjoy freedom.
Yeah, that's right, my man. Cool. Hey, if you listen to this, you liked it, or listen to this, you liked them, please go on and leave us a 5-star review. It helps us to reach more people and serve more real estate and entrepreneurs. Thanks for listening.